For more than a decade, one man terrorized Colombia, killing thousands and flooding America with cocaine. Pablo Escobar wasn't just a drug dealer, he was a billionaire, a political candidate, and a mass murderer who once blew up a commercial airliner to kill one person. Narcos tells his story and what came after, when his fall created a power vacuum that let the sophisticated Cali cartel take his place. From stolen military guns to prison escapes to the birth of narco-terrorism, I'm breaking down the entire story of Narcos in just a couple minutes. Season 1. The Rise of Pablo Escobar. Narcos starts in Chile, 1973. A chemist nicknamed Cockroach creates high-quality cocaine but needs a way to distribute it. When dictator Augusto Pinochet starts executing drug traffickers by firing squad, Cockroach flees and meets a young Colombian smuggler named Pablo Escobar. Escobar already runs most illegal trade in Medellín. He smuggles everything from cigarettes to appliances, but cocaine represents something new. This pure white powder sells for 10 times what marijuana does, and Americans can't get enough of it. Escobar immediately sees the potential and partners with Cockroach. One handles production, the other distribution. We witness this drug explosion through the eyes of DEA agent Steve Murphy. His constant narration gives us the American perspective on this Colombian nightmare. After his partner gets killed by Escobar's men in Miami, Murphy moves to Colombia with his wife Connie, determined to bring down the emerging cocaine empire. In Colombia, Murphy teams up with fellow DEA agent Javier Peña. From the start, these two have different approaches. Murphy plays by the book while Peña bends rules, sleeps with informants, and does whatever it takes. Together, they work with Colonel Carrillo, head of the Colombian police's search block, one of the few uncorrupted cops in a system where Escobar's bribes reach everywhere. As money pours in, Escobar brings family members into his operation. His cousin Gustavo becomes his right-hand man and moral compass. His wife Tata manages the finances. Even his mother, Hermilda, gets involved, hiding cash in her garden. By the early 1980s, they're shipping 10,000 kilos of cocaine to America weekly, making $60 million a day. The cash flows in so fast they can't launder it. Escobar buries millions in the ground and spends lavishly. He builds a massive estate called Hacienda Naples, with a private zoo featuring hippos, giraffes, and elephants. He also becomes a local hero by building housing for the poor and handing out cash in Medellín's slums. With wealth and popularity, Escobar moves into politics. He buys his way into Colombia's Congress, believing the position will protect him from extradition to the United States. But his political career implodes when Justice Minister Rodrigo Lara Bonilla exposes his criminal past on national television. Escobar responds the only way he knows how, and with violence. He orders motorcycle assassins to gun down Lara Bonilla in broad daylight, marking his shift from drug trafficker to full-blown terrorist. The Colombian government, backed by the US, declares war on Escobar and his organization. While evading authorities, Escobar forms the Medellín cartel with other traffickers, including the Ochoa brothers and Jose Rodriguez Gacha. When a communist guerrilla group called M19 kidnaps the sister of the Ochoa brothers, the cartel unites to fight them. Later, Escobar flips the script and uses M19 to attack Colombia's Palace of Justice and destroy evidence against him. Murphy, Peña, and Carrillo chase Escobar relentlessly, but he always stays one step ahead. He has informants everywhere and doesn't hesitate to place bounties on police officers, paying $700 for every dead cop. In just 1 year, his men killed 457 police officers in Medellín alone. The city becomes a war zone with daily shootouts and bombings. The violence escalates when presidential candidate Luis Carlos Galán promises to extradite drug traffickers to the US. Escobar has him assassinated at a campaign rally, shocking the nation. Galán's speechwriter Cesar Gaviria takes up his cause and runs for president on an anti-narco platform. Desperate to stop Gaviria, Escobar plants a bomb on Avianca Flight 203, which Gaviria is supposed to board. The DEA gets wind of the plot, and Murphy warns Gaviria not to fly. Gaviria survives, but 107 innocent passengers die in the explosion. The attack backfires completely, turning public opinion against Escobar and helping Gaviria win the presidency. Throughout Season 1, we see how Escobar's empire affects everyone around him. His love affair with journalist Valeria Velez gives him media influence. His loyalty to cousin Gustavo shows his capacity for genuine connection, and his devotion to his children reveals a family man beneath the monster. He builds them a private zoo, but also makes them practice emergency evacuation drills, knowing they're always targets. With Gaviria as president and international pressure mounting, Escobar finds himself cornered. He proposes a shocking deal. He'll surrender and confess to some minor charges, but only if Colombia promises not to extradite him to the US and allows him to build his own prison. Gaviria, desperate to end the bloodshed that's killing hundreds of Colombians every month, reluctantly accepts. Escobar surrenders to authorities and moves into a luxury facility he designed himself called La Catedral. This isn't a real prison. It's a mansion on a hillside with a football field, bar, jacuzzi, and private quarters for hosting family and prostitutes. His own men serve as guards, and police aren't allowed within miles. Meanwhile, the Ochoa brothers cut deals with authorities to get lighter sentences. They betray Gustavo, who gets captured and beaten to death while refusing to turn on Escobar. The loss of his cousin devastates Escobar and removes one of his few moral anchors. Without Gustavo's calming influence, Escobar becomes more paranoid and erratic. Season 1 ends with Escobar comfortably installed in his custom-built palace overlooking Medellín, while Peña secretly shares evidence with the rival Cali Cartel in hopes they'll help take down Escobar. The stage is set for an even more violent confrontation. Season 2, The Fall of Pablo Escobar. Season 2 opens with Escobar living like a king in La Catedral, still running his empire from behind bars. The charade falls apart when the government discovers he's torturing and killing enemies inside his prison. When authorities try to transfer him to a real facility, Escobar gets tipped off and simply walks out, disappearing into the night. Now he's a fugitive again, but conditions have changed. The Colombian government, humiliated by his escape, commits fully to hunting him down. The US sends Delta Force operators and sophisticated surveillance equipment to help, and Escobar's former allies have all turned against him. On the run, Escobar relies on his most loyal sicarios like La Kika and a new driver named Limon. He moves constantly, never sleeping in the same place 2 nights in a row. He grows out his beard and puts on weight to change his appearance. But his empire is crumbling around him as his money and options run out. Most dangerous of all, a vigilante group called Los Pepes emerges from the shadows. Their name stands for People Persecuted by Pablo Escobar, and they include former Escobar associates, Cali cartel members, and right-wing paramilitaries. Los Pepes wage a dirty war, killing Escobar's lawyers, bankers, and family members, displaying their mutilated bodies with signs warning others not to help him. Agent Peña secretly works with the Los Pepes, feeding them information that helps them target Escobar's network. Murphy becomes concerned about his partner's increasing willingness to work with killers to catch a killer. Their moral compromise reflects the impossibility of fighting Escobar while playing by the rules. President Gaviria brings back Colonel Carrillo to lead the search block, knowing his ruthless methods might be the only way to catch Escobar. Carrillo doesn't disappoint, taking the fight directly to Escobar's doorstep. But during an operation based on information from Limon's girlfriend Maritza, Escobar ambushes and kills Carrillo. It's a devastating blow to the hunt. Season 2 vividly shows the personal toll this manhunt takes on everyone involved. Murphy's wife Connie leaves Colombia after nearly getting killed, helping a street kid. Murphy starts drinking heavily and becomes increasingly bitter. Peña crosses moral lines he never thought he would, and Escobar himself becomes more desperate and paranoid, lashing out at perceived betrayals. We also see the Colombian people caught in the crossfire. Limon, a taxi driver who becomes Escobar's driver, shows how ordinary people get pulled into the narco world with no way out. Maritza, who betrays Escobar hoping for reward money, represents the civilians who try to play both sides and end up destroyed. And the police officers and soldiers killed in the manhunt remind us of the real human cost of Escobar's reign. As Los Pepes decimates his organization, Escobar's world shrinks to just a handful of loyal men. When his wife Tata and children try to flee Colombia, they're denied asylum in Germany and brought back under government protection. Desperate to speak with them and increasingly isolated, Escobar makes a fatal mistake. He stays on his cell phone too long. Using radio triangulation technology provided by the US, the search block traces his call to a middle-class neighborhood in Medellín. On December 2nd, 1993, Colombian forces surround the house. Escobar tries to escape across the rooftops but is shot multiple times. As he lies dead on a rooftop, a Colombian officer radios, "Viva Colombia! We killed Pablo Escobar." The scene of Escobar's bloody body on the rooftop, surrounded by celebrating police officers, became one of the most famous images of the 1990s. After years of terror, Colombia's nightmare was finally over, or so they thought. With Escobar gone, Peña prepares to return to the US to face disciplinary action for his collaboration with Los Pepes. Instead, he's asked to stay in Colombia for a new mission, taking down the Cali Cartel, which has now become the world's dominant cocaine operation. Season 3, The Cali Cartel. Season 3 shifts focus entirely to the Cali Cartel, with Steve Murphy gone and Javier Peña now leading the DEA's efforts. Escobar was a sledgehammer, the Cali Cartel is a scalpel, precise, patient, and far more sophisticated. The cartel is run by 4 leaders, each with distinct personalities and roles. Gilberto Rodriguez Orejuela, known as the chess player, is the CEO and strategist. Unlike Escobar's explosive violence, Gilberto prefers bribery and political manipulation. He's always thinking 5 moves ahead. His brother Miguel handles day-to-day operations and enforcement. Where Gilberto is calm and calculated, Miguel is hot-tempered and impulsive, especially when it comes to perceived disrespect. Pacho Herrera manages distribution with deadly efficiency. Openly gay in a machismo culture, he compensates by being more brutal than anyone else when crossed. His elaborate murder scenes are like choreographed dances. Chepe Santa Cruz Londoño runs their massive New York operation, expanding their reach in the United States while maintaining a surprisingly jovial personality for a drug kingpin. And then when we meet them, they're at the height of their power, controlling 80% of the world's cocaine trade, but Gilberto makes a surprising announcement. The cartel will voluntarily exit the drug business in 6 months, having negotiated a favorable surrender deal with the Colombian government. They'll serve minimal jail time and keep their fortunes. This 6-month window creates urgency. They need to make as much money as possible before retirement while keeping their operation hidden from the DEA. To stay under the radar, they've built an incredible surveillance network, tapping phones throughout Cali and paying off politicians, police, and military officials. Peña assembles a new team including agents Chris Feistel and Daniel Van Ness. They face opposition not just from the cartel, but from corrupt Colombian officials and even the CIA, which has its own agenda in Colombia. When Peña pushes harder against the cartel, his superiors tell him to back off, suggesting that some in the US government prefer stability to justice. The season introduces fascinating new characters who illuminate different aspects of the cartel world. Jorge Salcedo, the cartel's head of security, never wanted to be part of the criminal world. He took what he thought would be a straightforward security job and got pulled deeper into cartel operations. Now he's looking for a way out, but knows any misstep means death for him and his family. David Rodriguez, Miguel's impulsive son, creates problems with his reckless behavior. His jealousy and attempts to prove himself worthy of the family business repeatedly jeopardize their careful plans. Maria Salazar forms a relationship with Miguel after he has her abusive husband killed. Their relationship shows a human side to the otherwise ruthless cartel leader. Unlike Season 2's straightforward manhunt, Season 3 plays out like a complex chess match with multiple players making simultaneous moves. The DEA tries to catch the cartel leaders before their surrender deal goes through. The cartel leaders maneuver against each other while trying to manage their exit strategy. And characters like Jorge find themselves trapped between these powerful forces, just trying to survive. The DEA catches a break when they manage to arrest Gilberto during a raid. With the cartel's leader in custody, Miguel takes over and abandons the surrender plan, choosing instead to fight. He grows increasingly paranoid and violent, killing anyone he suspects of disloyalty. Meanwhile, tensions flare between the Cali cartel and the North Valley cartel after Miguel orders the murder of Claudio Salazar. Claudio's mother, Gerda, leads the North Valley operation and vows revenge. Pacho gets caught in the middle of this conflict, barely surviving an assassination attempt in Mexico. The season builds to a nail-biting finale as Jorge risks everything to help the DEA locate and capture Miguel. The security chief has to maintain his cover while secretly feeding information to the agents. Knowing discovery means certain death. In one of the show's most tense sequences, Jorge has to improvise to keep Miguel in one location, long enough for the DEA to arrive while not arousing suspicion. In the end, all 4 cartel leaders meet different fates. Gilberto and Miguel are extradited to the US for long prison sentences, Pacho is killed in prison by North Valley assassins, and Chepe is murdered by paramilitaries after being released. Their carefully constructed empire collapses almost overnight. Jorge manages to get his family safely to the United States and enters witness protection, one of the few characters to escape the narco world alive. Peña, disillusioned by the corruption he's witnessed at all levels, resigns from the DEA. The series ends with the North Valley cartel poised to take over Colombia's drug trade, while in Mexico, a new generation of traffickers is rising to power, setting up the spin-off series Narcos Mexico. Narcos showed the gray areas in what might have seemed like a black and white conflict. The good guys sometimes did terrible things, while the bad guys loved their families and occasionally showed mercy. The series refused to offer simple answers, instead presenting the complexity of the drug war in all its contradictions. Decades after Escobar's death and the fall of the Cali cartel, Colombia is still dealing with the legacy of the narco era. The country has made remarkable progress. Medellín transformed from the world's murder capital to a tourism destination, and Colombia's democracy has strengthened. But cocaine production continues, violence persists in some regions, and the shadow of that bloody history remains.